Let's talk tips and tricks on how to up your game in Marvel Rivals. We're going to be looking at the settings and how to best take advantage of them. We'll start with the basics, but stick around for the really big points that will make a huge difference later on in the video. This is Positively Hazo, your resident settings menu enthusiast. I'm running PC here, but there's a lot of this video that will still transfer to consoles as well. For display, you're going to want to go full screen. That's going to give your game the best performance it can. Match your aspect ratio to your monitor, same with your resolution. Anti-aliasing, again, match up to your hardware here. Super resolution mode, I'd highly pick native unless you need to get some more frame rate, then you can knock down that setting into the performance options. For sharpening, I feel like the recommended 80 is pretty good. If you lower that, you're going to end up with blurry edges around objects and players. If you go higher, as it warns here, that can cause some distortion. Frame generation mode. So when this came out, a lot of my games put it on by default, and it absolutely tanked my FPS. My performance was absolutely torn to shreds. Do not use that. You might have better luck with your setup, but with mine, do not use that. Low latency mode, if you have it, stick that on. Leave your FPS uncapped unless you're struggling to maintain a solid 60 FPS. And VSync, I see a lot of people still play with this. On every machine I've ever had throughout my life, VSync makes the inputs sluggish. My mouse just always feels like it's moving in gravy whenever VSync's on. Do not use it. Of course, if you're struggling for that performance, it can help, but I find it's very restrictive if you need to make quick movements and snap your aim quickly. And graphics, I've tried all low to high. On my machine, they all just have a solid 100 FPS, no matter what setting I use. I find that with a lot of games at the moment, whenever I lower the graphics to try and get some extra frames, they just still sit around 100 FPS. So again, tweak for your needs. If visuals are important to you, keep on the high settings. If you're needing that extra FPS boost, stick to those lower settings. But if you're not desperate for the extra frames, I wouldn't worry too much about having the higher graphics on. I'm not seeing a huge difference. In terms of volume, again, preference. The only one that could be a benefit to performance is lowering that music volume so it doesn't disrupt your combat audio. 3D enhancement, again, will vary with your hardware and peripherals. Again, from my experience, I find the 3D enhancement always adds quite a bit of audio delay, so I'd recommend going without it. At the bottom, we have subtitles. This can be quite handy in order to announce actions that are happening in the game. As we see in the example, we have Hulk smash. Even if there's a distant enemy that might be quiet, the subtitles will let you know what abilities they're using and give you that heads up. But it is an extra distraction, so use at your own discretion, really. Now here's the big one, the combat mix. Here's where you can really adjust the different sound effects during your game. So you have your hit indicator. This may work with characters like the Squirrel Girl, like if you're bouncing projectiles around corners and you need that notification to know you've hit. But in terms of hit scan and bullet weapons and melee, it's pretty obvious when you hit, and your crosshair is also going to flash when you hit, so you don't need the volume of your hit marker to be that high. You imagine playing Star-Lord or Punisher with rapid-fire weapons. You're just going to get this constant pinging noise going over your entire fight and distracting you, and masking other sounds that might be important to hear. Similar approach with a healing sound. I find it quite hard to spot my health bar going up, so I actually quite like a bit of volume on the healing, so that I'm aware I've got heals and can return back to the fight. But in terms of healing others, I don't need to know about it. I can see what I'm doing. Damage volume, again, you're balancing this with your on-screen indicators. You don't really need both. If you've got a visual indicator of something occurring in the game, you also don't really need the sound doing it as well. So if you're keeping aware of those damage indicators, you can turn that damage volume down. However, if you find yourself missing those damaging indicators on screen, turn your damage volume up. And are you sick of Galactica shouting over your entire fight? You can turn it down here. I don't think you can turn it completely off. No. So again, with the KO sound cue, we have visual cues and we have the audio cue. If you're not keeping track of the kill feed, you can turn on the audio cues for these as well. Now let's have a look at keyboard. And the first point at the top here is that you can change your settings per hero. So if you find some of the abilities just feel like they're on the wrong binds for you, you can swap them per hero. Instead of changing all of ability 1 for every hero, you can pick and choose which abilities will be on which key bindings. You can also do this with the mouse sensitivity. So with melee heroes, I like to go with a higher mouse sensitivity, so it's easier for me to keep track of enemies that I'm constantly spinning around. Those high movement heroes benefit from that higher sensitivity. However, for a precision hero, I use an incredibly low sensitivity. Most shooter players will tell you to make sure you can do a comfortable 360 with your mouse. Me, it's a 180. I can either turn left, I can turn right. And now the secret's out, please don't run circles around me because I won't be able to do anything. The little anecdote I always like to say about sensitivity is think about measuring something. If someone's moving very slowly across your screen, you want to be able to aim in millimeters. If you've got a high sensitivity, you're aiming in like meters, you're going to be going like that. So while someone's just slightly moving, your increments are going to be way too high. So the lower sensitivity, you're going to make those micro adjustments to keep track of targets in the distance. For the reticle, this is preference again, but personally, I would suggest the dots. You don't need to know where the bullets might go. You want to know where the middle of your screen is. So just a simple dot does much wonders. Plus, your aim can only improve by being consistent with aiming at the center of your screen rather than aiming at the center 5% of your screen that a circle would give you. Crosshairs arguably could have advantage on controller, as those lines give you an axis for your X and Y. Oh, but what about shotgun spread? Shouldn't you have a big circle? Again, you still want to aim at the middle of that shotgun spread, plus it's a cone of fire, so a circle isn't really a good representative, because the cone starts here, but ends this big, Because as the cone fires out, that circle radius changes. It depends how far away the enemy is. The circle isn't really going to give you much information. Just aim for the dot in the middle. Again, another adjustment you can do is the health bars, so if you're on a healer, you definitely want these on. But just be aware your team might be weak and you could run into a fight that they're already losing. And potentially, most importantly, the communication wheel. Yes, you start with 4 sections, which covers most of the communication you need to do. But what's missing is the thank you. You can adjust the sections to have 8 to enable you to have a few more bindings on there. Just make sure you're saying thank you to your healer. Plus, if you don't have a headset or if you're eating, just bind a push to talk for Christ's sake. Let me know if any of this helped you out and if anything was new to you. And if you got some extra tips, help out the community. Comment below.